glad we finally got going, and excited to talk with everybody for the next few minutes about safety. Just to kind of go over a little bit of what we're planning to discuss. We're going to first touch on safety culture, just kind of high level. What is it? Talk about how you develop one, some key issues facing fleets, and then specifically kind of how we're going to spend some time how we at Purkeys can help with a few of those, specifically driver distractions, cargo, protecting cargo from theft, and helping with maintenance issues. But let's start, like I mentioned, with a safety culture. In prep for all of this, we are a manufacturing company, so safety is very important to us, and building our products and making sure all of our employees are safe. Similarly, we've been in the trucking industry for 30 years now, and so we're very, hopefully, we try to be very tuned into to what's going on in the industry, stay up on research, and in preparation for this, I've made sure to dive into the research, especially the most current research on what it means to build a safety culture, what the impacts of that is, and kind of how you go about it. So just to make sure we're all on the same page with that definition, we're going to start there. So we define a safety culture as a focus on safety at all levels through training and iterative process development with an understanding that results are long-term. And a few kind of key things there, focusing on all levels. So that starts with top-level management all the way down to your newest hire, making sure that everyone is on the same page, that it's imbued in the company culture, that it is a rock that everyone gathers around, to make sure that nothing's missed, that there's no one kind of slipping through the cracks, anything like that. Focus on training. So again, we'll talk about this more, but starting with the first hires and then continuing that training throughout their time at the company. And again, at all levels, iterative process development. So just like if you're creating something in a factory, you set up your process, you try it. There's a gap here, there's a hole here, there's some issue comes up, you try to fix that, and you move forward as best you can to try to make that process fit in your system as it can be. And the last thing, understanding results are long term. It's not like you're going to say, okay, we want a safety culture and you're going to see the results tomorrow. Anytime you're building any kind of culture, and every company, of course, has a culture of some sort, whether it's intentional or not. Anytime you build that, it takes a long time, and it's going to take a little bit for those results to show. But we're going to mention some research here in just a second that definitely shows that there are very real results from focusing on that safety culture. And the second point here, I mentioned it earlier, but it should be synonymous with the organizational culture. I think sometimes when people talk about safety culture, it's like there's this one safety department and it's their job to deal with safety at the fleet or at the company or whatever that may be. But really, all of the research that we've looked at shows that there is just one organizational culture, and safety should be a big piece of that. It should be built into the strategy and the operations of the company, and not just in some silo where you have them constantly trying to fight against whatever the actual culture is of the company and the overall culture, but really one cohesive structure. So as I mentioned, some results of when this is done successfully, what actually comes out of it. There was a recent study from the National Surface Transportation Safety Center for Excellence, quite the name, based out of Virginia Tech, that followed 9 fleets for a prolonged period of time. And 6 of the 9 specifically mentioned that throughout this time and throughout their history, they focused on building this safety culture. And a lot of the things we'll talk about on the coming slide of how to build a safety culture came from these best practices these fleets kind of put out there together. But for those fleets that focused on a safety culture, they saw crash reduction and prevention by as much as 75%. So when you think about the different costs that come with crashes, which we're all aware of, both monetary and human, that is extremely significant. And but again, it's something that takes time. It's not like you're going to see those results tomorrow. Now, there are things, and we're going to talk about them, that make this process move along faster, but it is a process, and it does take time. For another thing that study found that was interesting, 6 of the 9 carriers, and this is not the same 6 of 9 that reported the strong safety culture. There's some overlap, but it's 6 of the 9 also reported implementing new technology and had significant results with those. And what I thought was interesting there is that it wasn't like all 6 of those fleets implemented the same technology. Some implemented some pieces that were the same. Some had totally different technologies they implemented. Some had a whole suite of technologies, while certain others just had one. But it was all based on their fleet, their operations, and the main accidents and the main incidents that they were seeing. So, for example, if they were finding that a lot of their accidents were when drivers were rear-ending a car in front of them, they would put in that automatic emergency braking. Some were focused on keeping drivers in the lanes. Some were focused on having camera features for backing up. But there were all these different technologies that were implemented, and all of them were helpful to that fleet, just making sure they were implemented strategically. So a few safety risks that I'm sure everyone's aware of, but just that kept coming up, and kind of we grouped them into 4 buckets, I guess, that kept coming up throughout the research. The first one is driver fatigue, which we're all very aware of. The second one is driver distraction, which is becoming more and more prevalent with more technology in the cab, both phones and now you have the different truck management systems, whether it's tablet-based or not. You have obviously the lights on the dash, and you have the billboards, and you have all kinds of stuff that are looking to grab some attention from the driver. So that's a big issue. The third one is maintenance issues. So just either a PM process that was a step was missed, or maybe there's a training, disparity in training, or new technology that came out, whatever it might be. But it was a third bucket. And the fourth bucket was other people. So whether that be other drivers or theft or some other variation of that, there's only so much of that you can control, and there's only so much of that you can just protect yourself against, and make sure that you're doing things right. And unfortunately, some things happen, but that is a very real risk that has to be watched out for. So with those in mind, and with this definition of safety culture in mind, we wanted to kind of pull out some main steps of how to develop this and how to develop a safety culture. And we, from all these, found 6 key steps, 6 key things that needed to happen to help develop this safety culture and to move things forward in your organization. All of these can reinforce each other and can overlap. They're not necessarily independent, but they all focus on different pieces of the business, different groups, and different processes, as well as kind of different sides of the psychology, which we'll get into here. Is to start at the top. So every piece of research out there talks about how a safety culture has to be go all the way to the top. It has to be leadership driven, it has to be management driven. If you've got a driver that you say, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z, but then they're late on a delivery because they were doing X, Y, and Z, and then they get penalized for that, because then you don't have that buy-in from management, and you're going to have people not actually following the safety protocols that are put in place. So it's extremely important to have that buy-in at the highest level to make sure that people are not punished for doing the right thing, but as we'll get to later, are celebrated for doing the things they need to do to make sure that they're safe. The second thing is to start from the beginning. And what we mean by that is particularly with personnel. So start training people at the very beginning. And this is every employee. It's not just train your drivers on driver safety. It's train everybody on what safety means to the organization, what safety means in their role. And if it is, so for fleets, a lot of that comes with driver safety. So training everybody on what driver safety looks like, so that if you've got a dispatcher, if you've got someone talking to a driver or working with them, that they're able to understand what the driver is trying to do and what the driver needs to do, to really make sure that everything is working together and that there aren't these different opposing forces butting heads within the organization. And this also brings us into the next piece, which is to communicate openly and frequently. And this is not just management sending out communication saying, we need to do this, here are your directives. It's making sure that, maybe there's signage in certain places. It's also making sure that there is an avenue for upward communication. So if you do have your people on the ground and they notice something, making sure that they have some sort of avenue, whether it's anonymous or not, to report these things to upper management so that they can get addressed. A lot of times the research has found there might be issues because of larger cost-cutting structure policies in place or different things. And, with no bad intentions, management might be like, hey, this is something that looks like we can cut some costs on, or this is something we can change. And they do that, and the effects downstream can be different than anticipated. So being able to have that reporting structure from the bottom is really important to be able to catch those things and make sure that that you don't cut out a key pillar that you didn't realize was holding up this important piece of the safety side of the business, and cutting a corner that you shouldn't be cutting, that sort of thing. The fourth one is being data driven and having consistent accountability. Sorry, my throat gets a little dry. And this was something. Accountability is always something that we hear about, and more, and this kind of leads into the technology piece in the next point, but more and more you have these pieces of technology that are in place that help with this. So a lot of the fleets, for instance, in that former study, mentioned the HOS rules, and they said no exceptions following the HOS rules. We've got to have these in place. Everyone in the company needs to understand that there's no exception to this. And that's something that with the ELDs and things going on now, all of this is logged and tracked. It's something that can be shown, that can be measured, and where you can have accountability. So it's important to not just say that this is going to be something you're going to follow, but to actually track that, to hold people accountable, both positively and negatively, and to have those kind of sit-down discussions if you do see an issue arise, to understand what happened in that moment, and kind of what you can do forward to either change the motivations or change the operation or whatever it is, to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. The fifth one here, leverage technology. And this is, we've got both to support and inform your safety efforts. So sometimes it is, we're going to try to mitigate X type of accident because we've seen a rise of these over the last few years, or something like that. So you implement a certain technology to support that. Sometimes it's, okay, we need to be able to understand if drivers are getting distracted. So maybe you there's some fleets that are putting in cab cameras or side cameras, rear cameras, something so you can actually have data to back that up. Obviously, we talked about the ELDs to better understand drivers' hours. We'll talk about our system a little later if we're as far as going hands-free and keeping drivers focused on the road, to have something that allows them to be hands-free and to still get important messages or something like that, just to allow those operations to run smoother. As we mentioned before, 6 of the 9 fleets discussed implementing different technologies and had significant improvements in their safety goals because of those. The 6th piece here is to celebrate success. And this is kind of mentioned multiple sides of the psychology. It is important to hold people accountable if they are doing something negative, but it's really important to celebrate something if it's done positive, and to show that that doing things the right way is going to be celebrated. And this can be done through, I know a lot of fleets will do driver competitions or, driver awards for a certain amount of safe miles. It can be monetary, it can be non-monetary. It might look like a senior management who has certain safety metrics built into their compensation. It can look like a lot of different things, but it's really important to celebrate that and to say, hey, this isn't just something we're going to punish you for not doing. This is something we're actively celebrating and actively trying to engage with and push forward. So those are kind of the 6 main things that we saw, the 6 main tools that we found throughout kind of trying to consolidate a bunch of research that are really the key steps to pushing toward creating a safety culture. And again, creating it as a part of your corporate culture, wherever you are, by getting the CEO to buy in, making it a part of the initial training, and into the everyday business processes, I guess. So we've got a couple polls here. This is the first one. We're just kind of we want to kind of see for the people we've got on here, some of these polls. This one, for example, we're going to share the results. Some of them, either because of the nature of the question or the style of question, we can't. But just kind of want to get your feedback of, if you've been implementing this safety culture, what has been the most helpful piece in your organization? And then the next one, we'll talk about what's the most difficult one. But just kind of want to take a moment to understand what you found most helpful of all of these, so that we can kind of learn together and try to really push this industry forward. So we have all 6 of those listed here. We'll take about 20 seconds or so to let everybody put their answers in. Hopefully that's enough time. Okay, I think that is about enough time. So let's see what we've had here. Okay, so we have celebrating success as a big 2/3 of the people voting celebrate success, and 1/3 saying leveraging technology to support and inform. So yeah, both like we mentioned, extremely important. And sorry, I've just gotten a note that I cannot be heard right now. Is that the case with everyone? Is that any better? If someone can, okay. All right, I think the technical people are working on that. Okay, so hopefully everyone else can hear me all right. So again, yeah, so extremely important. I wish we could kind of have a more interactive setting here. Just curious what that leveraging technology and celebrating success looks like within the different companies. But yeah, those are both extremely important. So next question we want to look at is, what's the most difficult piece to implement? So we'll take about 20 seconds just out of these, if you've seen either efforts trying to implement something, or if you just think about how you would go about this. What do you think would be the most difficult? And again, we'll take about 20 seconds. Try to really understand where those roadblocks might be. I would say roadblocks, maybe hurdles is a better word. 5 more seconds. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, okay. I can't see exactly how many people answered, but we have 100% communicating openly and frequently. So maybe a bit of a transparency issue at fleets. I mean, I can definitely see that. There's a lot going on, and whether it's the fact that companies are kind of in silos and don't communicate across, or if you, like I mentioned, creating a safety culture, you don't necessarily see those results tomorrow. So it can be forgotten. It can be not prioritized as it should be. Sometimes there are new technologies that come out that aren't discussed, but communication is extremely key and extremely difficult. Sorry, just seeing, looks like the volume is back on, so that's good. All right, thanks everybody for sharing and for getting there. Again, I wish we could have more back and forth, but so just want to spend a few minutes focused on a few ways that we at Purkeys can help. Obviously, this is a significant priority and a big deal within the trucking industry. And as a company who's been very heavily involved in the trucking industry for decades, something that's very important to us. We are, as anyone who knows us, we are usually focused on batteries and electrical systems. So the pieces that we focus on here are focused on that electrical side of things. We can't necessarily do everything, but we do have a few things that we really taken to heart and are really focused on helping our fleet partners with. So the first one is distracted driving. So I didn't realize actually until not too long ago a couple of these statistics. I mean, it's an issue. Texting driving is really dangerous, but this one stuck out to me as pretty shocking. That at 55 miles per hour, reading one text is the equivalent of going the length of a football field. I unfortunately have been guilty of reading a text while driving. I've tried to do better, and after learning this, I've tried to make sure that I'm not reading text, because you don't think about it. You look down for 1 second, you don't think about how far you're going, but to cover that distance without actually even seeing the road, so many things can happen at that time. That's extremely scary. So this is an issue that we've focused on specifically in the commercial vehicle area. It's a more significant issue than in standard passenger vehicles. 80% of crashes involve driver inattention in one way or another, and this is the different things calling for your driver's attention is only growing with different things either on the road, distractions on the side of the road, phones, different technologies. So it's extremely important to be able to focus on this and mitigate some of those issues. A couple of stats here. It's 23.2 times more dangerous for commercial vehicles if there's a crash involved. Generally, that's just because of the size. A lot of these commercial vehicles are significantly larger than your standard passenger vehicle. Also, because of this, largely, there's an increased cost. It's twice the standard cost of it. Even if there's not damage to people or to equipment, there are tickets or fines if there is an issue. So with that in mind, we developed a product in conjunction with one of our customers. They were trying to let drivers get messages through the speakers of the cab, because what they were seeing is they would have at that time it was a built-in communication device for drivers where dispatch could send them messages, and they had a little speaker built onto that, but the driver had the road noise, the driver had the music coming through the speakers, all these different things, and it was drowning out the message that they were trying to receive. And so what we built for them is this device called the Aware, and if you take out the radio, there's the universal connector in the back of the radio. You just unplug that and plug that connector into the Aware, into the blue box there, and then take this harness that's out and plug that into the radio. So this kind of sits in between the harness from the truck and the radio, and it allows you to connect a device wirelessly to the speakers. And with that, we can essentially control the speakers. So if a message comes in from dispatch, rather than the driver having to look down and read it or pull over and read it or whatever it is, the Aware turns that text message into an audio message. And it either, if there's sound playing over the speaker, shuts that sound off, or if the speakers are off, it turns the speakers on, and then pipes that message in through the speaker system, make sure that the driver can hear it over the road noise, to make sure there's no other audio distracting and diluting the message, and to make sure it's done safely. Again, looking down just for a second, you're covering the length of the football field. So making sure that the driver doesn't have to look down, but they can still get that important message to get the delivery there on time. So this is one of the ways that we've really been focused on helping fleets mitigate distracted driving. Another area we've been focused on is helping with cargo theft. So this is, excuse me, I forgot we've got a poll here. So before we kind of go into some statistics about cargo theft, just kind of want to get a better understanding of the people on this call. If this is an issue, the results of this are not going to be published. Just we're going to show it. Sensitivity, we know there's not necessarily a reporting mechanism, and some fleets want to keep this kind of in-house, so this will just be for our private knowledge, but just kind of some information. If we can gather that, we'd really appreciate it. So we'll take another 10 seconds or so. Okay, so hopefully everyone has had time to answer. And again, we really appreciate you doing that, because one thing we found is that cargo theft is a huge issue across North America. It costs about 15 to 30 billion every year. And a lot of this is trucks are the main targets in a lot of this. A lot of the thefts occur while trucks are parked. And the main categories are food, beverage, and electronics, which honestly, food and beverage kind of surprised me at first. But once you think about the different holiday seasons and the ways that those can be kind of turned over easier, I guess it makes sense. But those are usually the most heavily targeted areas. But the thing that was most, I don't know if interesting is the word, or concerning, or what it might be, but there's not necessarily a single reporting mechanism for reporting cargo issues. There are different companies that gather things, and there are some methods to report cargo theft, but a lot of it companies just write up to shrinkage or to internal issues or whatever it might be, just kind of write it off. And so it's hard to know exactly what the number is and where the focus is. But with that in mind, we did have a fleet come to us and say that this was a concern for them and their customers, was security. And so with that in mind, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that we have polls in here. I'm not used to the polls, but so one more here, and we are going to show this, show these results. So just kind of curious to get an idea if you do see any theft issue, kind of where that happens. Again, we mentioned that generally we've shown, or research has shown that this happens more in in parking lots and rest stops and things like that. But curious to hear if y'all have had the same experience. So again, we'll just take another minute, or 10 seconds, right? All right. So, okay, so it looks like we have about the same finding here. Those low security parking areas where we're having most of the theft. So we had, like I mentioned, we had a customer coming in. Thanks again to everyone for answering that. We had a customer come to us and say that security was an issue for them and their customers. So with them, coordinating with them, we developed this product called the SafeFreight. And what it does is it's got a pressure switch at the door, and it has an alarm system that is key switch operated. So let's say the driver stops, gets out of the truck, he goes back to the back and is looking to unload his cargo. Before he does anything, before he opens any door, he's got to take his key and deactivate the alarm. If the door is open without the alarm being deactivated, then the alarm will sound. So if that could mean if someone's trying to break in, it could just mean if the driver's going down the road and there's something happens to the door and it pops open. So it not only helps to mitigate the risk of theft, but it helps to mitigate the risk of the driver accidentally driving away without closing the door, or the door popping open en route or something like that. So anyway, so once the driver makes the stop, unloads what they need to unload or loads what they need to unload, then they have to re-engage the alarm. If they try to drive away without re-engaging the alarm, it will sound again. So just making sure they don't drive off without forgetting to do that, without forgetting to secure the cargo. It's a modular design. It's very easy to install. We have a light that is in the cab with the driver, so it'll go on when the engine first starts, just to show them either that the alarm is on or the alarm is off. And then we have the key at the back of the, and actually, hang on, I've got a drawing here. Yeah, so here where you can see the SafeFreight, you've got the key right about there, and you can see a picture of that at the middle of the bottom, kind of what that key switch looks like. There's a light there to show the driver whether it's armed or disarmed, and we have a speaker, a large alarm system that will go off. This picture on the left here is the actual switch, so that's just kind of showing what that looks like. And the goal here was simplicity, trying to find something that would do the job and do it effectively, but also do it simply and do it safely, something that the drivers could turn on and off very easily, but that would also, again, do what needs to be done to make sure that their cargo is secure. We have one more poll question here. Just kind of thinking about that alarm system, if you use an alarm system or if that's something that you're interested in. We'd love feedback on additional features, or if you see any issues, kind of anything along those lines. Just want to take an opportunity while we have you on this call. We'll take about 15 more seconds. Just kind of any thoughts or notes you have. Like I mentioned before, all of our products are made in development with customers to solve a specific need. So your feedback is really important to helping us to develop better products and solutions that'll actually be helpful in the industry. Take about 5 more seconds. Okay, thank you. And just the nature of this, we can't display those results, but really do appreciate any and all of your thoughts. And the third area where we at Purkeys have really tried to invest in helping improve the safety of the industry is in maintenance practices. And I know we've worked with a lot of fleets on this in different ways. We've got us here a couple pictures of us at a tech show. We're out on a lot working on some different equipment. But the main things this has looked like is, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've always focused on electrical systems, on battery systems, and making sure that the whole electrical system on a truck and trailer work well together. Because if you don't have the electricity you need, your vehicles aren't going to operate. They're not going to operate safely. They're not going to operate correctly. So just a few things I want to mention, because some of these things, like our battery chargers and things like that, we do sell, but there are other things that we offer for free for the industry, and would love to hear from you or your fleet if there's something that we can do to help you all meet any kind of training need, or even just to consult on a certain project. If you've got a question, whatever that might be, that's what we're here for, and that's what we love to do. So we've done training and consulting in the past on different things like building proper battery rooms, maintenance procedures, PM checks, multimeter training, which we've had multiple webinars on in the past. Really anything that has to do with electrical systems. If you've got a question about which battery tester to use, we'd be happy to answer that, or give you the pros and cons or whatever. We've been in the electrical business for 30 years since we started. That's what we know, and we'd love to be helpful in that. And also, like I mentioned, we've got our free electrical trainings with webinars. We also have a lot of videos on YouTube of how to use a multimeter, how to check different electrical loads in the circuit, how to check for parasitic loads on your vehicle. Really anything we can do to offer any expertise or help in those areas. That's what we are always trying to do. So just wanted to put this out there as a blurb. If we can help on any of these matters, we would love to be able to do that. So I hope this was helpful. I hope there was some good information in here. I am not seeing any questions, so I will just mention that we do have a poll here at the end. I'm going to wait another few seconds. If you do have any questions, please feel free to put them into the Q&A chat, or my information, I believe, is down in one of your widgets at the bottom. I think it's the presenter widget or something. It's got my email address and my phone number. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help and would love to do that. We also have a service line if you have a technical question. If you have some of our products already, I wanted to put that in there, and our product information as well. So looks like we do have one question. So on the Aware, is there a microphone? Can drivers use it to talk? So there is a microphone option, but again, that is optional. I know some fleets do not want that. Fleets we worked with in the past have requested that we leave the microphone out of it. And we can also work with, whoever your provider is, whether it's PeopleNet or Platform Science or Omnitrax or whoever it might be, to integrate well with their product and to, in some cases, be able to put some limitations on the functionality to make sure that everything's done safely and all that. So yeah, thank you for the question. Okay, so I guess, like I said, if you've got anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I will turn this over to Celia to put up our final poll here. And we really appreciate your time. Thanks.